America, you hear about two-toed sloths and three-toed sloths. So they always have 3 toes on their hind feet, so it's the number of toes on their front feet that differentiate the two-toed from the three-toed. The Linnaeus here, like Joe, is the largest of the 6 sloth species. Does anybody have any guesses how much they think Joe here might weigh? 40? Yeah, so we usually hear between like 35 and even up to like 50 pounds. So he's a little deceptive. He's not quite as heavy as he looks. He does have a lot of really thick, dense fur, so he's usually between 18 and 20 pounds. So Joe here, as you can see, he does move very slowly. You hear about sloths being very, very slow, and sometimes they're even depicted as moving pretty much in slow motion. But he might move a little bit faster than you expect. You saw him come out here. He's got decent speed when he wants to, being the operative word. So sloths can move about 500 feet an hour, which is still very, very slow compared to pretty much everything else. But when they're properly motivated and want to, they can move at a decent pace. Sloths do spend between 16 and 20 hours a day sleeping, so it is pretty rare to see one moving at all. So this is probably the most active Joe will be all day, is this 10 a.m. shift. Once he gets up into his branch system, he'll probably go over onto this platform over here and curl up and sleep for the whole rest of the day. He might wake up again around 4 o'clock. That's when I bring in the rest of his diet, because in addition to sleeping 16 and 20 hours a day, sloths are also nocturnal. So he is most active. His few hours of activity are when we're not here. So we usually give him the majority of his food at the very end of the day, because that's when he's going to be more likely to wake up and eat it. So as you can see, Joe here is hanging upside down from his branches. Sloths move very differently through the trees than most other arboreal animals, meaning animals that spend most of the time in trees. Most animals would swing or climb or just like walk along the branches. Sloths, however, spend 95% of their time hanging upside down, just like Joe is demonstrating for us right now. So that means they do pretty much everything hanging upside down. They eat upside down, they sleep upside down. Females will even give birth hanging upside down, just like this. So that means these guys have some really cool adaptations to living their upside down lifestyle. So I don't know about you all, but it'd be really hard for me to hold myself upside down for more than a few minutes, let alone 95% of my day. So we mentioned his hands and feet a little bit. So you can see his hands and feet look very different than most other animals. They have those really long claws, which are in fact his fingers, and then a really long palm that's like a big callus that kind of fits perfectly over those branches. We like to call them his little coat hanger hands, just because of the way they fit perfectly over that branch. So if you look at your hand and consider it when it's in like a relaxed, natural position, it's just kind of flat, kind of open, and then it's more work for us to grip onto something and hold onto it, like we're actively having to think about this and tell our hand to grip on. For Joe, it's the exact opposite. His hands and feet naturally want to be gripped onto that branch, and it's more work for him to think about releasing to move on. So that means he's just super secure and stable on that branch. He's not having to think about holding on. He's just naturally holding on, which allows him to do a lot of other things, like look for food, sleep, without having to worry that he's going to let go of that branch by accident and fall. Another really cool adaptation these guys have is every other mammal, their back is what's up towards the sky, so their fur goes from their back down around to their belly. For Joe, since his belly is what's up towards the sky the majority of the time, his fur actually grows in reverse from his belly down around to his back. So that just ensures that these guys, their hair is growing in the direction like water is going to hit them when they're out in the rain, to help funnel it off of them so they don't just get fully saturated. Sloths have really, really lean body masses, which means he doesn't have a lot of extra fat or anything like that, which is in part why he looks deceptively small for what his weight we guess was. These guys don't carry a lot of fat or anything like that, just because, again, they are just holding themselves up all the time. So that means if they ever do get fully saturated out in the rain, they can get really chilly, which can cause a lot of issues for them. These guys have a really, really sensitive digestive system, so if they get too cold or things like that, that can actually cause their digestive system to start to shut down. So a lot of times when you see sloths that have had to be rescued and rehabilitated, frequently it's just that they got too cold and they just need to be taken inside and warmed up and fed for a little while and made sure that their digestive tract is up and working again. Another really cool adaptation these guys have is if you feel your rib cage, your ribs stop about midway down your torso, and then there's a gap before you get to your hip bone. sloths don't have that gap. Joe's ribs go all the way down to his hip bones. So that's just there to ensure extra protection if he ever did take a tumble out of a tree. I know I've said he's a great climber and his hands and feet naturally want to clinch onto those branches, and those are true facts. But every once in a while, a sloth has been known to fall out of a tree. Either it's a youngster that's just not fully adept and makes a mistake, or even adults can make mistakes and take falls out of a tree, especially if they were rushing trying to flee from a predator. Or it's also been seen in the wild that occasionally a sloth will mistake their own limb for the next part of a branch and kind of try to grab onto themselves and get tangled up and fall. So these guys have been seen to be able to fall distances up to 60 feet and be able to get back up and get back in that tree and be all right. I'm sure they don't feel great after falling 60 feet, but they can survive it thanks to their adaptations. So we mentioned that sloths have a really special digestive system. These guys do have the slowest metabolism out of any mammal. So these guys are all about conserving their energy. That's in part why they do sleep those 16 to 20 hours a day, is he's trying to conserve energy and do as little as possible, which works very well for them. It seems like a weird thing that would be beneficial, but sloths have made it work for them. In the case of predators, if you think about something that catches your eye, it's typically something that was moving by fairly quickly. And Joe is never going to be that thing moving by fairly quickly. So that helps him evade the notice of predators, especially if he is sleeping 16 and 20 hours a day. Odds are he's just going to be curled up somewhere right up against the tree and blending in very well. So hopefully evade the notice of predators. Another really cool thing about their digestive system, does anybody know how often sloths use the bathroom? So in the wild, sloths use the bathroom just about once a week. So Joe here goes a little bit more frequently than his wild counterparts. He goes about every 5 days or so. We think that's just because his diet here that we feed him has a little bit more variation, a little bit more nutrients than his wild counterparts would be getting. And that seems like a really weird thing, again, to be beneficial, but sloths make it work for them very well. So we said sloths spend 95% of their time hanging upside down in trees. One of the very few times they do come down from the tree is to use the bathroom. So sloths are very vulnerable when they're on the ground. We talked about how his hands and feet are adapted to be hanging upside down in the tree. So that means they're not well suited to be on the ground. You can see the way his hands and feet, those claws are curved. That means he can't stand up on them on the ground and walk around. So if he ever is on the ground and has to move around at all, he can't just walk. He has to just kind of pull himself along by his arms. So sloths do try to avoid being on the ground as much as they can, which only using the bathroom once a week actually works really well for them. Go back up. So here Joe is just demonstrating how very, very strong his core is and his limbs are, especially in comparison to humans. It'd be very hard for us to just hang by our feet casually snacking away. But for Joe, it's no problem. So this again just ensures that he's able to navigate between branches very easily, and also ensures that he can reach to grab some leaves that look tasty, a piece of fruit that he saw, and he doesn't want to have to track from one branch to another to get. So this thing in my hand, this is what we call a target stick. It's how we do our training with Joe. So it's how we let him know where we'd like him to go and what we'd like him to do. So Joe here knows that the second he touches his nose to the end of this target stick, he's going to get a bite of one of his favorite foods. So if you watch him, the second he touches it, sometimes he tries to fake it, he'll turn himself towards me with his mouth wide open. So we talked briefly about Joe being very well camouflaged from predators just by aspect of being so very slow. But they do camouflage very well in other ways. As you can see, Joe here is some very beautiful shades of brown, which enabled him to blend in with the trees very well. And in the rainy season out in the wild, sloths can actually turn green. It's not them changing color themselves per se, but sloths actually are so slow that moss and algae will start to grow in their fur in the wild. So then a green sloth blends in with the canopy of the rainforest even better. So it just serves as additional camouflage for them. So Joe knows the routine right now without even me asking him where to go. But again, you can see how easy it is for him to just pull himself up, navigate himself along through the canopy of the rainforest. Not quick, but but he gets the job done very well, very easily. And we're gonna miss our soup too. Okay, we're going for the melon. Oh, we're gonna bypass that too. Yes. Does anyone have any questions about sloths? Yeah, I tried to give it to you. You missed it. So Joe here, as I mentioned, is 6 years old. Sloths are considered mature at 5 years old. So we didn't do it today, but we've noticed since he turned 5, he's been spending a lot more time doing scent marking and things like that on his branches. It's just his way of leaving some pheromones behind, so any other sloths that came through would be able to know Joe is here and learn about Joe. So we do get asked if Joe wouldn't like to have a friend, if he wouldn't like to have a girlfriend here in this space. And the answer is no. Sloths are solitary in the wild, so he's pretty content to just be here by himself.